It's Wednesday, and there's a little chainsaw massacre going on out here. He's having way too much fun. We have done load after load after load after load today, but it's been a good day to do it. So now I'm going to take you across the road and give you a tour of our lamb finishing barn, because that video yesterday went way longer than I expected, so I think I have to do it in a couple parts. So this is the first barn that we renovated. We put a new door in here. This was all just flat here. It had a loading chute for the pigs. This was a pig finishing barn. The main door is still there where it was. When we first renovated this, we had a grain bin here, and I fed prepared pellet, but we've since taken that out, put in a proportioner, and then we have corn in the big bin and then the pellet in the small poly bin. We just moved everything and poured a pad there. Okay, so this is it was the old feed room for the pigs. It's kind of dark, sorry guys, most of the light bulbs do not work. Oh, there you go. Well, I don't think that makes it better. It's scary in here. All right, so the big feed mill used to be there for the pigs. That's where they'd mix all their feed. They had a big silo where the high moisture corn would be. That silo has since not worked, and it's still got a little bit of corn in it, and it's just always full of grossness. So it doesn't smell great in here, if I'm perfectly honest. So yeah, this is, and we have a little bit of a leaky roof here too. So not the greatest little room, but we don't really use it for a whole lot. So it is what it is, but it is the entranceway for my finishing barn. Oh, that thing's just quieting. And that's the finishing barn. So this used to be a pig barn right up till the late 90s, I believe early 2000s maybe. What happened is it just sat empty for quite a few years, right up till, well, 2011. And Mark and I kind of looked at each other, and this was shortly after I left the chicken operation. And we looked at this barn, and he's like, we have to do something or the mice are going to carry it away. And I said, I agree. So when we looked at livestock options, we figured maybe this would make a really good sheep barn. And I looked at some designs, and this is the one I kind of came up with. Just a very simple pen on one side, pen on another side, a raised feed alley. So this used to be a pig barn. I think I have some old pictures I can show here. I've shown them in previous videos. There was 2 pens in this barn with a center wall, and then there were slats in both sides of the barn. So we took out all the slats, took out all the busted all the concrete. There was a ton of rebar and concrete in this barn, and we redid everything. So we took down all the insulation, took out all the penning, there was a door in that corner. Yeah, and then we just started rebuilding. So what we did is we leveled out the floor, poured the two sides, the two pens, and then came back in a little bit later and put a raised feed alley in the middle. So very simple layout. We didn't really know what we were doing. Arguably, maybe we still don't. And for the sheep, it worked kind of okay. We had the sheep in here from 2012 to 2013 when we moved into the new barn. And I think at my most, I think I maybe had about 150 in here, but with lambs, it really impeded management. The barn is 120 long by 40 wide. The gates here I bought from TSC. They're not the greatest. They rust, so I'm not crazy happy with that purchase. When we first did the barn, we did some research as to how to do a feed area, and this is the difference between this barn and the barn across the road. We do have a raised feed alley, so they get fed on the floor, free choice hay. And if I had this in the other barn, I would have to come in. You can see how these are these are little lambs, so you can see how they make a little trench, and then they can't reach that stuff. I'd have to come in here if these were used, because they need to eat every morsel of feed in a day. I'd have to come back in and push it in. So that's the difference between floor fed and then fed in a bunk. This works over here because I feed them way more than they need in a day. That's why they're not even eating right now, and they have a lot of waste. So every day I just pull out the stuff that's kind of woody almost, put it in the pen as bedding, and then I just sweep up the good stuff. I don't have to be putting out fresh hay every single day, which is nice. Yeah, so here's the pens. This pen is a bit different than across the road. These are 14 feet deep instead of the 12 in the other barn. I did have ewes in here the first year. It didn't work well, I'm not gonna lie. It wasn't thought about, it wasn't set up very good. The handling system, you've seen me have the handling system, and I actually set it up in this front area here, and it just really limits your options of how your flow can be, whereas in my other barn it's really set up I thought about it before I built the barn instead of after. It works really well for marketing lambs, and I usually am only working on one pen at a time, so it's not too bad. When we researched these boards, when we first got these sheep in, what we did, we wanted it so it could either be used for ewes or for lambs. So it was all about the neck space, like the head space in between here. So what we did is we had a wider gap for the ewes and a smaller gap for the lambs, and then we could just flip the boards and put them to whoever. If this was a pen of ewes, then we could flip it so it was the wider opening at the bottom for the ewes. This is C-channel here that this just fits nicely in usually. Everything's a bit worn out and needs probably some love, but for the most part it works really well for finishing lambs. For lights, nothing too special. We just used incandescents, 3 rows of it. As for the curtain setup, so curtains very much like my other barn, except for they don't go down as far. So the problem with that, just like the other barn, I do have chimneys, but my vet has been in here since, and he said it actually doesn't work, because by the time that air, even if these were all the way open in the summer, by the time that air hits the lambs where it needs to be, it never does. It actually doesn't hit the ground to lamb level till the feed alley. So he said in all essence, all I'm doing is ventilating my feed alley. He said that makes no sense, and that is why sometimes you hear the lambs coughing, is because just at their level, I have to keep it really dry and really well bedded, because they are actually not getting the right air. So the goal for this year is to, and I've said this I don't know how many years, is to potentially he wants me to put an airbag, a fresh airbag that's got direct air coming in from outside, and it will give fresh air to the level of the lambs, and that's supposed to help with respiratory and just help with that dust in their throat. They get it from the straw, of course, and they get it from the hay. It's just that little scratchy throat that makes them cough. So sometimes you hear that in the background when I'm talking. The way I can overcome some of this ventilation issue is these circ fans. So there's a circ fan there, a circ fan there, a circ fan there and a circ fan there. And what I did is I arranged them in what is called a racetrack. So the air is racing around, and that has helped dramatically in the summer and the spring when I turn these on for air quality. Because what happens is, yes, the air isn't getting down to their level, but those circ fans, I've got them angled down. So it is actually pushing air and mixing air. And then that helps with the air quality in this barn. And that's really why I've waited so long to put this fresh air tube in, because the circ fans have been working. Where the circ fans don't work so great is in the winter, because I don't want chill and I don't want a draft to chill my lambs. And I also don't need that extra air moving that would potentially freeze the water. So the circ fans are 80% of the way there, but they don't work great in the winter. Now the thing with these curtains in this barn, as the difference between this barn and the other barn, is these are run manually. So I can just open and close them manually, but the problem is I have to remember when it's really cold at night to get back over here and close them up for them. The one thing I did in this barn too, which I have lots of regrets, is putting the water lines exposed. I wish I had buried them in the ground just to have less freezing. The good thing is since then I've done a lot of stuff just to insulate the line, but it's still not the greatest. And in this barn's different than the other barn. It's got some green water bowls that require them to get used to the spigot. But I do like that water bowl because it's easy to clean. Hi. But this is my proportioner. So I have corn on this side, pellets on this side. The lambs, when they get weaned over here, they get a lamb ration that has 80% corn, 20% pellets, and this is a proportioner, so it's kind of timed based on how the thing runs. So there's only so many pegs kicked out on this one, but all the pegs are kicked out on this one. So every time this rolls around, the corn just keeps dropping, whereas this one, it only drops like half the time to make the right amount. It drops into, there is a hammer mill in this. We don't actually use it. We keep the corn whole, and I know a lot of people don't like that, but we do that. The lambs have good teeth. They chew up the corn. And then to get the proper mix, the auger actually does all the mixing. So by the time it gets to that first drop, everything's automatic. It comes up here along the roof line there, and then just automatic drops. So it just starts at that feeder, goes to that feeder, goes to the back right feeder, and then finally the shut off is that back left feeder. And I do have the ability to shut each off when it's needed to. So I'll kind of show you how these feeders work. Basically, turn on the flex auger and then the proportioner. So everything's moving and working. Pellets, corn. So it comes down that drop, and then we got a V to fill both sides of these feeders. And then that's the mix. Hi, Billy. So these are the feeders. I'm going to turn those on now, and then you won't be able to hear me. We built this the same time we built the big bright span barn across the road. We had a crew from the same construction company come, and they really just took it right off the barn and framed it just a very plain, simple lean-to. The next summer we came around and then just put this barn board on the side here. I'd like to do that at the back, just because when I'm piling or trying to stack bales, when I try to stack bales in here, what happens is we had some boards framing the back, but they push off and then the bales fall out. So, because there's enough force that they get pushed back. So I would like to enclose the back on this if we could sometime. But a really nice, plain, simple structure. So the one thing that we did find when we got into the sheep, we noticed that it's just such a ripple effect. So as soon as we built the barn, then all of a sudden we had no room for storage. So we had bales kind of shoved in machine sheds, and then Mark couldn't put his wagons away. And so this lean-to was it's nice for stacking pretty high. We can get most of our straw requirements in here, and then the rest go in the bank barn. There's enough room for a few bales in there, as well as where we had the cows. I'll show you that next. Yeah, but I love this old bank barn, and I just did not ever want to see it get torn down. So we really wanted to make use of this old facility across the road, but an old barn just sitting empty, you know, the mice get at it, the rats get at it, and it can go downhill real fast. So we wanted to do something with it, and sheep just fit the bill really well. So we did take time and renovate the newer pig barn that was built, I think, in '78. And then this beef barn we renovated a couple years ago, and now we have no beef cows. So I do have an idea for that. So that's another 2020 hopeful addition, but we will see. I love this barn. This is maybe one of my favorite spots here. As you can see, this is where we'll store. This was actually right full. It was right to the door of straw bales. I'm so glad we had lots of straw this year, because we've had to use quite a bit in that barn across the road. But what a beautiful old bank barn here that we get to use. So yes, we could use this as more storage if we choose to do so. I was just talking to Belinda this morning, my friend Belinda, and she said she actually purchased, these are all brand new head locking gates. So she said she would love that for her beef barn. So I might be able to sell some of this stuff off to her if we decide to just make the storage again. We could use it, but what I would like to see is, which means I'd have to get rid of these too, but make this into a new ram pen, because it does have access to the yard outside. So then I could have them, they could go out and just take care of that little small amount of pasture. We spent money on a nice cement yard out here, so I could put the feeder out there if I wanted to, so they could come inside to drink, outside to eat, keep this area pretty clean for the most part, but they'd be able to retreat in here from the rain. So that's kind of the plan, maybe for Billy and any new lamb rams that I have. I could maybe move them, like their pen is in there. I could just bring them out and put them in here. Or in the future, it could be just a ewe lamb pen when I'm raising replacement ewe lambs. So it won't go to waste. We just have to decide fairly quickly what we want to do. And once stuff firms up, I'll be able to come in here and get rid of the manure. So that is the plan for 2020 over here in this barn. That's really the only thing on any building wish list for this year. A lot of people ask me about this house. They love it. I love the location of this house, and I love the potential of this house. I don't love the price tag of the potential of this house. It has been empty for quite a few years. This is where Monty used to live when he worked for Mark's dad, and it hasn't had anyone living in it for so long that it's become kind of a B&B for raccoons and the like. I do have a tiny itty bitty little pasture, and it needs a lot of work. It needs to be rehabilitated before it's really any good again. The cows have, between the cows on it when they shouldn't be, on it when we're really, really short grass, and me on it with a telehandler trying to get hay in and out, is just left it kind of in pretty rough shape. But here it is. I think it's about a 2.5 acre chunk. So it goes kind of, well, you can see where the corn stalks are. So it goes to about there. It does go wrap around the back of the lean-to and to the back of the lamb finishing barn. And then in behind the bank barn, there's a tiny little cement yard kind of in there for them to go on. So it'll be a nice little pasture. I'd like to reseed it perhaps this spring. And if I bring some ram lambs in there, then they would be able to come out here and have some pasture. Update on all the happenings today in the news. Canada has got a mandatory quarantine on people that have traveled. So mine's almost up, thank God. But for people coming home today, I think it starts tonight. So another 14-day quarantine for them. And this time it's like law. That's the only thing really new. And the other thing is the lamb market dropped this week, and it's right before Easter. So I am pretty stressed about that, as well as probably a lot of producers. I was really excited because this group did really well. They conceived well. I did really well lambing them, and they've grown really well. And I was just really looking forward to having a strong Easter market, and it's not looking like that's going to happen. This was completely out of everybody's hands. It is what it is. It's no one's fault. It's not just me. There's the beef industry's been affected, and then all you guys. There's probably a lot of you guys watching that are just waiting to get back to work. So I'm feeling your pain today. It was a tough pill to swallow this morning because the markets have been really good the last like 3 weeks. I don't think I had anything ready anyway to my weight specs, so I'll be sitting on these for, I guess, a little bit now. I couldn't have taken them anyway because I'm under quarantine, but just really discouraging. And I feel bad for all my fellow sheep farmers in Ontario and likely the rest of Canada. So my thoughts are with you guys. This is the tour of this barn and the equipment, and then I think on the next video I will be talking all about, I'll take you a tour of all our equipment.